Welcome to TeachMeAll.com. In this video, we're going to show you how to change the rear brakes on this 2001 GMC Sierra 1500. Now, rear brakes don't generally wear as fast as the front, but you still need to keep an eye on them.
That's right. Now we're going to review with you the tools we'll be using today.
We need a jack, 2 jack stands, and 2 wheel chocks. We'll need new rear brake pads, 2 new rear brake rotors, some brake fluid, some high temperature caliper grease, some anti-seize lubricant, and some brake parts cleaner. We'll need thread lock. Here we have an 8-inch C-clamp, and we also have a disc brake spreader, a torque wrench, a 7/8 socket and ratchet for the lug nuts, an 18mm socket and ratchet to remove the caliper bolts, and a 12mm socket and ratchet to remove the guide pin bolts, a 10mm wrench, a screwdriver, hose clamp pliers, a bungee cord, a brake bleeder kit, some shop towels, some safety glasses, a shop light, and the dead blow hammer. We also use a 16mm thin wrench and a 10mm thin wrench. Now we're going to put wheel chocks in front of both front tires. We're going to move the center cap. And then we're going to loosen the lug nuts on both rear tires. Now with the lug nuts loosened, we're going to go ahead and raise the vehicle off the ground using our jack, placing the jack under the rear differential. Once we have the wheels off the ground, we'll support the vehicle with 2 jack stands. We lower the vehicle onto the jack stands. Now the vehicle safely supported on the jack stands, we'll go ahead and remove the lug nuts from both rear tires. Now we remove the tire and slide up under the vehicle so it's out of our way, and also for safety purposes in case the vehicle falls. The first thing we're going to do is use our hose clamp pliers to clamp the brake line. Then we're going to remove the dust cover, open up the bleeder screw, install our bleeder kit onto the bleeder screw, and we're going to compress the piston inside the caliper. This will allow us to remove the caliper easily from the brake rotor. Once we're done compressing the piston, we remove our C-clamp. Remove our brake bleeder kit, tighten up the bleeder screw. Reinstall our dust cover. Now we use our 16 millimeter thin wrench to hold the guide pin, as use a 12 millimeter socket and ratchet to remove the guide pin bolt. With the top guide pin bolt loosened up and almost removed, we'll move to the bottom and do the exact same thing. Then remove the bottom guide pin bolt and slide the top out, and then we can pull the caliper off of the rotor. We'll use our bungee cord to tie up the caliper to keep it from hanging on the brake line. Then we're going to remove our brake pads, starting with the outer, and then removing the inner. Now we're going to remove our caliper mounting bracket using our 18 millimeter socket and ratchet. Starting with the top. And moving to the bottom. With both bolts removed, we can slide the caliper mounting bracket off, and then we can slide the rotor off. Then we're going to put our new rotor on. Hold it in place with one of our lug nuts. I'm going to clean it with some brake parts cleaner and a rag on the front and on the inside. Then we're getting ready to install our caliper mounting bracket. We put some thread lock on the caliper mounting bracket bolts. Slide the caliper mounting bracket into place. We'll insert our bolts and tighten them down. Okay, once we have the caliper mounting bolts tightened down, we use our torque wrench to torque them to 148 foot-pounds. Now we're going to use some anti-seize lubricant to grease the slides that the pads will ride in. On the inner and the outer and the upper and the lower. Once that's done, we'll slide our pads into place, starting with the inner, then installing the outer. Now we grease the back of the pads with our high temperature caliper grease. Now, in order to get ready to reinstall our caliper, we're going to make sure the piston has been compressed flush within the caliper. First, we open up our bleeder screw. Install our brake bleeder kit. Use one of the old pads to press against, and now we're going to use our disc brake spreader to finish compressing the piston. When you're sure the piston is fully compressed, remove the spreader, remove your brake bleeder kit, and tighten up your bleeder screw, and reinstall your dust cover. Now you can slide the caliper into place. Before we install the caliper guide pin bolts, we're going to use a little thread lock on them. Then we insert the bolt, tighten it up by hand on the bottom and the top. Now we're going to use our 16 millimeter thin wrench and our 12 millimeter socket and ratchet. And finally, we're going to use our torque wrench to torque the guide pin bolts to 31 foot-pounds. Then we're going to remove our hose clamp pliers and move to the other side. Again, we'll clamp the brake line, remove our dust cover, loosen up the bleeder screw, install our brake bleeder kit, and using our C-clamp, we'll compress the piston. Once the piston is compressed, we remove the C-clamp, remove the brake bleeder kit, tighten up the bleeder screw, and reinstall our dust cover. Then we're going to remove the caliper guide pin bolts, and if you notice here, we have a hard time getting our ratchet in there, so we use a 12mm box-end wrench instead for the top bolt. Then we're going to remove the bottom caliper guide pin bolt. With the bolts removed, we slide our caliper off and tie it up using our bungee cord. Then we're going to remove the brake pads. Then we're going to remove the caliper mounting bracket. With the caliper mounting bracket removed, we'll remove our old rotor and slide our new rotor into place. We'll hold it on using a lug nut. We'll clean it off with brake parts cleaner and a rag. Then we're going to reinstall our caliper mounting bracket, and we'll put some thread lock on the caliper mounting bracket bolts. We'll tighten them down. Then we'll torque them to 148 foot-pounds. We're going to grease the slides with our anti-seize lubricant. We'll top and the bottom on the outside, on the inside. Then we're going to install our pads, starting with the inner pad, and then installing our outer pad. Then we're going to compress the piston inside the caliper. First removing it from our bungee cord. Remove the dust cover, loosen up the bleeder screw. Install our brake bleeder kit using an old pad and our disc brake spreader. Once the piston is compressed, we remove our brake bleeder kit, tighten up our bleeder screw, reinstall our dust cover. Then we're going to put thread lock on our caliper guide pin bolts. Make sure we have the back of the pads greased down with the high temperature caliper grease. Then we're going to slide our caliper into place. And install our caliper guide pin bolts. Here's our 16mm thin wrench, our 12mm box end. We'll tighten the bolts up. On the bottom, we'll use our 12mm socket and ratchet. Once you have the bolts snug down, we'll go ahead and torque them to 31 foot-pounds. Then remove our hose clamp pliers and get ready to bleed the brakes. Reopen the hood and we'll check the master cylinder, see how much brake fluid we have in there. We'll fill it up to the max line. Starting with the caliper farthest away from the master cylinder, we're going to use a thin 10mm thin wrench, and this time on our bleeder screw. We'll install our brake bleeder kit. Have your partner depress the brakes, open up the bleeder screw, close the bleeder screw, and have your partner release the brakes. Press again, loosen up the bleeder screw, close it, release. Keep doing this until there's no more bubbles in the brake fluid. Remove the brake bleeder kit, reinstall the dust cover, and move to the other side. Never release the brake pedal with the bleeder screw open. You can introduce excessive amounts of air into the brake system. Just repeat the process we used for the other side. And always keep a check on the master cylinder. Make sure you have plenty of brake fluid. We're going to check the master cylinder again and fill it back up to the max line. Then we'll get ready to reinstall our tires and wheels. Then we're going to just snug down our lug nuts. We move to the other side. Remove the lug nut we used to hold the rotor in place. Reinstall these lug nuts and tighten them down. With all the lug nuts snug down, we'll lower the vehicle back onto the ground. Slide our jack back into the differential. Raise the vehicle up and remove the two jack stands. Lower the vehicle back onto the ground and torque the lug nuts to 140 foot-pounds in a crisscross pattern. Reinstall your center cap. Move to the other side. Do the exact same thing. 140 foot-pounds in a crisscross pattern. And lastly, we're going to remove our wheel chocks.
Well, we hope this video will help you change the rear brake pads and rotors on your 2001 GMC Sierra 1500.
Send any comments you may have to comments@teachmeall.com. And as always, thank you for visiting teachmeall.com and have a great day.